Back in 2010, I was at the peak of many things in my life, including my career. Parallel to that, I was also climbing, and climbing brought something very, very special to my life. The more I climbed, the more strength I found in me. The more I climbed, the more I realized that the only person that can define what I can or cannot do is just me. And also, I have realized that we are a lot more than what we think. And once we actually realize that, it's very hard to settle for anything less. So the climbing then took me to a bigger dream, and that dream was actually that maybe I'm ready physically and mentally to climb the highest mountain on earth, Everest, or what is called by many the last great human adventure. Everest is an 8,850 meter peak, and it lies between Nepal and China. And the mountain stayed unclimbable until 1921, when the first expedition tried to actually climb it, failed. It took so many years, so many killed lives on the mountain until the first team of 2 people climbed it and summited that mountain on 1953. It took another 20 years for the first woman to actually climb it and reach the summit and make a point that women also can climb this mountain. So after a very incredibly scary flight, I reached Lukla, which is the mountainous region leading me to the Everest base camp. And in there, I was supposed to trek for 10 to 12 days to reach my destination of base camp, where the real climbing is going to begin. On the 3rd day, and at around 3,900 meters or so, I saw the first sight of the summit of Everest, looming above me, like 5,000 meters still above me, higher than anything else in the horizon. It looked so out of reach, so uninviting, so hard, so tough. And I saw the very famous plumes coming out from the summit. And these plumes blowing up mean actually a hurricane force winds. I looked at it, and I just questioned myself, what am I actually willing to risk in order to climb this mountain? I accepted and hoped for the best, but I also accepted the worst. And what is the worst that can happen? During that trek, we're actually reminded constantly of the risks that we are taking climbing this mountain. One of these very big things that we keep seeing is the monuments for killed climbers on Everest, which is a stark reminder that if anything goes wrong, the stakes are quite high. I reach base camp, and this is when the real climbing actually begins. And how do we climb Everest? Because our bodies are not actually meant to survive in such an altitude. So the way that we climb it is that we have to go through a process called acclimatization. And this process means that we have to climb high and then, sleep low. It means also that I have to climb from base camp to camp 1, go all the way down, back from base camp, camp 1, camp 2, and then come down all the way down. Again, camp 1, camp 2, and camp 3, and come all the way down. What this means that I must have resilience, perseverance, strength, but most importantly, I should really have courage, because it means that I still have to keep going through the same dangers and risks, not once or twice, but many, many times. So once we start, the process of the climb, the first section of the climb is what is deemed to be one of the most dangerous ones, which is the ice fall. And the way I like to really describe it is that it's really like a living monster, because this glacier moves 3 to 4 feet per day. And in this movement, it actually huge seracs or blocks of ice, some of them are the size of a car, some of them are the size of a 2-story building, can tumble down the mountain, crushing anything, underneath. And at the same time, opening crevasses, which are like deep holes in the ice that can just swallow anything that is walking above that. So the way that we climb it is that, there's a different techniques between ropes and ladders. Some of these ladders are, not just 1, but 2 or 3 or 4 ladders tied together, because some of these crevasses are quite big. And the only way that you can face such risks is what I say always, is that by mastering your own fear, which means you maximize your courage and you minimize your fear. And this is the only way that I was able to actually cross these ladders that are swinging in the wind with these bottomless crevasses underneath me, not looking at the drops on my right or on my left or the bottomless dark crevasse underneath me, just focus so much on my goal and at my dream. Once we reach camp 3, it means that the acclimatization process is officially done, and now that we are ready to climb this mountain. This process can take anything from 40 to 45 days of continuous climbing. So now I'm at base camp. I have to climb with very little sleep, or sometimes even no sleep, all the way, not only to camp 3, where I reach the highest on this mountain, but to continue to camp 4. And we do this as I said, non-stop with very little steep until I reached Camp 4, which is South Col, the highest mountain on the south face of Everest. This is called the death zone. Now we're climbing in the death zone. And what this means is exactly that the human body cannot survive such altitude. There is so much deprivation of oxygen that basically our body is dying faster than it's recovering. And what we do is we start taking supplemental oxygen. We reach actually the highest camp at around 2 p.m. and we had few hours in order to continue the climb later on that evening. In those few hours, what happened is that wind picked up really high and it reached an 80 kilometers per hour. It was deafening, you know, the tent was flapping on our head and we thought that we might have lost our chances at going out for the summit. Then a few hours later, the wind died down or calmed down enough that we've decided we're gonna go for that summit push. At 10 p.m., I left my tent and looked way above me. It was still another 1,000 meters to climb. And this is a huge mountain, a really huge mountain, and in the death zone. So under a starlit sky, I just clipped myself to the rope and started climbing. And I totally lost sense of time. It could have been minutes, it could have been hours. I just continued climbing, and all I could think of, my whole existence, was just about putting that one foot in front of the other. Just take that one more step. That's all it takes. Take one step, take 3 or 4 recovery breaths and continue. I saw flashes of light beneath me and I looked down. It was an actually thunderstorm happening beneath me to my left. I looked back at the face and I continued climbing. Sometime later, I saw the crimson colors to my east, and I knew that, you know, the sun was coming out, so it must have been hours. I've been climbing continuously now for 30 plus hours. Continued climbing. When the sun came out around 6 a.m., I was close to the south summit, which is 100 vertical meters from the summit, but it was another 2 meters in that altitude, 2 hours in that altitude. So it's really a triangle of ice and rock with a diagonal rope on it, and I started climbing it. 2/3 way ups, I actually just felt that I've burned out. I just don't have it in me, or that's what I thought. I hung on the rope, feeling nothing, doing nothing, thinking nothing. It was like this state of surrender that everything around me was in slow motion, didn't summon the energy or the strength to actually continue climbing that last 1/3 up. I had to dig deep inside to find that source of energy that we know must have existed and must exist. And I dug deep inside and I found it. And I just shook myself up. I started climbing that last 1/3 of the south summit. Once I was on top of it, I actually felt that adrenaline just kicked in. I just felt that maybe, just maybe, I'm gonna make it. I felt unstoppable. So I walked that knife edge ridge with 3,000 meters drop into China to my right, 4,000 meters drop to my left into Nepal, and just continued climbing into the last obstacle of rock face, which is called the Hillary Step. Once I climbed it, I was just 20 minutes away from the top of the world. And up there, just tears came up in my eyes. Behind my oxygen mask, I started basically sobbing because I knew I'm gonna make it. 20 minutes later, I stood tall and proud on top of the world. I have earned my summit. At 8:45 on May 21st, 2011, I became the first Palestinian ever to climb Everest. Not only that, but I became the first Arab woman ever to have summited Everest. Now, I didn't do it for the title. That wasn't what was driving me. I did it to earn my own self-respect and to pursue my own dream. See, there is no dream that is too big or impossible to actually achieve. There is no dream that needs a miracle to achieve, but what you need is hard work, harder work, and even harder work for it to become a reality, because there are simply no shortcuts to life's greatest achievements. So please, please follow your own dream. Please, please don't give up, because there is nothing out there that can be really seen as impossible. Thank you.